listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. 'Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Hello, Miami Dolphins fans, and thank you for listening to another episode of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast. I am your host, Michael Leva, joined as I am each and every Tuesday by Josh Moser of WSVN South Florida, South Florida's #1 news station. Josh, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great. Well, kind of.
Kind
How
of.
are you?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Yeah, I don't think a month ago we'd think by week 3 the season would have took a left turn like this, but it has. You got to play the hand you're dealt. So we're going to talk about all that is happening since last Thursday night's loss to Buffalo on today's show. But before I get to any of that, today's show is brought to you by Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Heat, the Hurricanes, the Florida Panthers, and all of the professional and college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey, a gift, or the newest hat to hit the market of your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida, Caneswear has it all. If you're not in South Florida, don't worry. Visit caneswear.com to shop the inventory from the comfort of your home. And yes, they ship internationally as well. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's caneswear.com. All right. Lead story, Tua, another concussion on IR, out a minimum of 4 weeks. It feels like it's 2022 all over again in some ways. Early season concussion, going to be out a month. And some doubt and question of when he'll return, and the Dolphins now having to rely on Skylar Thompson here, or maybe Tyler Huntley in a few weeks, I guess, in the near future. I guess, what are your thoughts on Tua's injury and everything around that?
I'm just sad. I remember being in the press box when it happened, and the entire stadium went dead silent. You feel for him. You feel for his family. You feel for his teammates. And I think Jaylen Waddle said it best. You know, you forget that these are people, and you put your body on the line each and every week. You look at the play and you understand that Tua was trying to get a first down after arguably having his worst half that he's had as a professional. You throw 3 interceptions in that first half. You're getting blown out in a game that you're favored to win. You're just trying to make a play for your guys. And, we talked so much, Mike, about all the jiu-jitsu training, learning how to fall. And Tua just got caught in the middle of, do I get the first down? Do I go head first or do I slide? And he got the first down, but I think fans forget that there's no yellow line across the field when you're actually playing. So you really don't know where you are. You've got to catch the sideline. I think Damar Hamlin was expecting him to slide because Tua hit him right in the chest. And then I think what scares me the most, Mike, is that it wasn't a hard hit.
Like the Packers one. That wasn't a hard hit either.
And if you're getting that type of response from your head hitting the ground and the fingers again going into the fencing position, I'm very scared for his long-term future. I'm not talking about football. I'm just talking as a person. And as a fan, if he had slid and not gotten the first down, I think he would have been roasted, especially the way that he played in the first half. We don't know that. But I think he was just out there making a play for his teammates. And, this is a big deal. This was the question of, do you pay Tua? And the quarterback market says that you pay Tua. And so he got his $200 million+ extension, $167 million guaranteed. And I think there's a really interesting concept here where it's called an injury settlement. So Tua is represented by Athletes First. His agent, Ryan Williams, put that deal together, as well as Austin Lyman. He and I have a relationship that goes back to our college days at USC. And what's interesting is if Tua passes concussion protocol and then decides not to return, which will ultimately be his own decision, regardless if he does not pass concussion protocol, Tua's not coming back. If he passes and then he decides to step away under his own accord, Tua would not be entitled to that guaranteed money. He'd be walking away from the game, and he'd be walking away from more than $100 million. So I know that we're not really to the economics of this, but the conversation that has to be had, hypothetically, if he passes, is one, the ability to go out on your own terms, which is so important to players. And then two, you've made $70 million in your career. As a player, you've probably made another 10 in endorsements. I think that's generational wealth. I think 80 million you could live off of. But it's hard to not think about $100 million, and I talked to Merrill Hodge, and Merrill was the first player that was forced to medically retire from the NFL in 1994 due to post-concussion syndrome. And he told me, he's like, man, you got to look at your kids. You got to be a dad. You got to be there for your family. And when you look at them, what's your decision? So, I think this ultimately could be longer than 4 weeks. We know that it will be at minimum 4 weeks. And if you look at that game, that would be the Cardinals game at home. The next two games, it's a road contest at Buffalo and on Monday Night Football against the Los Angeles Rams. So ideally, you'd like to start Tua at home. I don't think starting him on the road at Buffalo in his first game back, depending on where the team's at, I think we're going to have to wait and see if he's activated, because you want to have him practice as well. But, just unfortunate and sad. It's emotional. It's, you just feel for him. And Dolphins fans are kind of just like, here we go again. The curse is back. This was supposed to be the year, and now it's going into week 3. And, this team looks like now, it hinges on the future of Skylar Thompson, and can he be the guy? Remember, he beat out Mike White, and then Tyler Huntley possibly, but this is Skylar Thompson's team.
Yeah, and a few things. I know there was a report on Sunday, I think from the NFL Network, saying that Tua, he doesn't want to retire. I think his people are putting that out there because they know if they say otherwise, it's going to be used against him when it comes to money situations. If this gets to that point where he's cleared, he's not cleared, he doesn't want to come back. They want it out there. He wants to play. So it's like, pay me whatever. So I'm not the one, So I think hearing that report, it's like, well, what do you want him to say? You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, he's going to say that because he's got the right advisors.
Yeah, there was a caveat to that. It's before going to see doctors, Tua says that he wants to return to play. So
yeah,
it was worded in a way that, but you're hoping in this situation, we talk to NFL players, former NFL players all the time. And historically, teams don't always necessarily have the player's best interest at heart. The reality is that this is a business. It is what it is. Now, you look at the Dolphins, and they were graded the number 1 team by the Players Association as far as what the entire organization provides for its players. And for me, being in the facility, there's no doubt in my mind that they will do everything to do this right. And then, for people that are watching that say, the team may have their own agenda, or Tua may have his own agenda, Tua will go see independent neurologists as well. And then, there's a lot of decisions to be made, and we're going to find out in the next few weeks. And, hopefully, it's kind of an easy schedule. I hate to say it, with the next few games, the Dolphins should be able to put a few into the win column here, while we wait word on Tua and what his diagnosis and prognosis actually may be.
Yeah, and I think his return to the field kind of depends on this next month, because if they lose, let's just say worst case, they lose them all, and you're 1-5, it's like, is there a need to race him back at that point? Because at some point you got to just be realistic with where things are, how the season's going. It's like, is there a rush to get him back on the field if this season's sort of gone sideways and off the rails? You have to take that into account. But if they split or they're in the mix, then it's like, well, if he really wants to play and he's been cleared, who are we to stop him at that point? But I just remember 2022 when he was out that month after the Cincinnati win, his first game back. I remember because I think I was sitting near you in the press box was the game against Pittsburgh on Sunday night. And I remember that game, everyone was holding their breath because it's like, okay, he's back. Every play, at least for the first half, everyone's kind of holding their breath, like, please don't hit him. Hope he's okay. And now I think if and when he returns, it's going to be that same way, but more. Everyone's going to be sort of like, okay. And it's sad because the kid found something last year where he got rid of the ball. He protected his body. And I know you said if he slid, the fans would roast him. NFL fans, maybe. I think fans of Dolphins have been like, we get it. We understand. Yeah. I think he would have been fine amongst Dolphins fans if he slid. That's just me.
You were down big time at that point, but that's not going through your head. You're a competitor.
Yeah, exactly. I get it too. Yeah,
you can't fault him for that.
No,
but it's you could see that he was in a position that his body normally wasn't, and he did not know what to do. And I think him not knowing what to do, obviously caused the concussion. And I think that he'll be very. Well, we'll see if he gets cleared. I mean, that's the big hurdle, and we'll go from there. But, it just, man, it
stinks because, well, here's the deal. Prior to the injury, the team wasn't playing well anyways. That's also sort of been lost in all this conversation around him. It's another game versus a team with a winning record, and this one at home versus a team that you always struggle with, where they came out and played poorly up until that point when that happened. Turnovers on offense, Mike McDaniel's offense. I don't want to say it seems like the league sort of caught on to his offense, but in some ways, I think the team he sees twice a year kind of caught on to his offense at least, and he didn't have a counter to it. The offensive line, every fear that some fans had was kind of there, and on the other side of the ball, the Bills just ran it down their throat. It's just one game week 2, but again, that's sort of been lost in the shuffle that it wasn't a good performance, and that's got to be looked at as well. Why do we keep struggling against good teams with winning records, and we cannot ever beat these teams, especially the Buffalo Bills? So that's also, I think, another thing that's got fans down in the dumps a little bit.
Yeah, but this is the power of Josh Allen, and you can say whatever you want about the guy. The man wins.
Oh, he's good. Second best quarterback in the league behind freaking Mahomes. He's the second best. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah, he's a special player. It was great to see James Cook, 3 touchdowns and a half for him. Miami guy, Miami Central. The question was who was going to replace Christian Wilkins? What was going to happen in this run game? And, Anthony Weaver, what's going to happen with him here? It takes time. And, you look at the Eagles, Vic Fangio, obviously here they lose that game on Monday Night Football to the Falcons, but you lost your offensive coordinator, you lost your defensive coordinator, you still have all these pieces. It's just how are you going to get your guys the ball? And, it's, to me, there were a couple situations where Mike McDaniel, I think, made some serious mistakes. And if we're looking at this game, multiple third down plays where Jaylen, Waddle, and Tyreek Hill are not on the field. There were situations towards the end of the first half where timeouts could have been taken, and he let more than 20 seconds run off the clock. And I'm sitting there in the press box. I'm like timeout. And I was told, be quiet. And I got Chris Grier behind me, and he's just like, you're right. It's everything gets compounded when you lose, and you lose in that way, and then you lose a star player. This is realistically worst case scenario, and you're hoping for the best case scenario that Tua can come back in 4 weeks. I know that Tyler Huntley was a Pro Bowl quarterback, but realistically, he went to the Pro Bowl because everybody else
guys said no. Yeah.
I'm not knocking him in any way.
No, God bless him.
Allendale High, congratulations. You deserved it. You played well. You filled in for Lamar Jackson beautifully, but then here's a guy, you look at where he was at, you go to the Browns, you sign a contract and hey, everybody else is here, including Jameis Winston, is better than you. All right, go back to the practice squad. But I think this was actually a really good move by the Dolphins because it didn't cost them anything. Here he is. You can put him on the practice squad now with Tua going on the IR. You've got the roster spot. They released Robbie Chosen, who, in my opinion, had no idea what he was doing on the second interception, ran the wrong route, and that's what was Tua's second interception. He's here from, Plantation, local guy. So, he can hang around. They can always add him back. But again, cut by the 49ers. So, we've talked about this team needing a third wide receiver. Will River Craycraft come back? Will Odell Beckham Jr. finally play? But I mean, how much does that really help this team? And, Teron Armstead hurt in this last contest. We'll find out if he can play this week. You were kind of expecting that he would play maybe 10 games out of the 17. But with him hurt, with Robert Jones hurt, Skylar Thompson.
The offensive line was struggling to begin with. It was struggling to begin with. That's
the offensive line looks good. Everybody harps on him every year.
I know.
But,
I know.
Yeah,
that's it's going to be tough. Before we talk about Seattle, real quick, there's been a lot of debate, and I know it's early with Tua. Nobody knows if he's going to be cleared when he's. Regardless, if he's back, whether this year or even if he takes the rest of the year off, he comes back 2025. Just because of the way these aren't the last couple times he's had this concussion, the hits haven't been violent, or it's just kind of been mundane hits. Do you think Miami needs to be, and I say in the draft because it's cheaper and you have 5 years control, needs to be in the market for a quarterback for more than just a plan B to be like a number 2, just because one of these, if he continues to play, maybe it's the next one, maybe it's just 2 from now, might be the last one at some point, and you don't want to get caught flat-footed?
Yes and no. You're going to learn a lot about Skylar Thompson. And
I mean, obviously, if he plays well, that sort of takes that question off the table. Yeah.
Do you spend a first-round pick on a quarterback? And I think, it depends who's there, and it depends where you're at. And I mean, look at that Trey Lance pick that the Dolphins traded away, and the bounty that's turned into. And I mean, shoot, look at Bryce Young right now. I hate to say it, the Panthers gave away
everything.
They
gave up a lot.
I mean, they mortgaged the whole team, and now he's benched after 2 games with the number 1 graded offensive line in front of him. So
Robert Hunt.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at the other contracts, and I think it depends on where the entirety of the team is, depending on the health of the team when they come out of the season. So you're going to have to pay Javon Holland. I think he's a special player. I would love to see him stay in Miami, but the reality is he's going to have a market from a lot of teams, and he's going to command top dollar, and he deserves every cent.
Every penny of it. He's so good.
Are they going to pay him? Like, that's a question you've got to answer. And if you look at the end of last year, you got the deal done early with Jaylen Waddle, which is good. If Jalen Phillips is healthy, he's going to be up. You got to figure out if you're going to keep him or not. And then going back to last season when Bradley Chubb gets hurt, Andrew Van Ginkel gets hurt, it's almost like you can't really make these decisions until we get to the end of the season and figure out where you're going to be in the draft. And then at that point, you can start making some, decisions. Or, you can always trade away assets. I believe Tyreek's got an out after this year. Jaylen Waddle did. He re-upped. So, he's a cornerstone piece. And, I think the other piece, being honest with you, Mike, I really hope this isn't the case, but if Tua has to medically retire, there's money that comes off the books, and then your salary cap situation is completely different. Yeah. So, the quarterback is the most important position in football, and all of the scouts know who's good, and you can't win without a good quarterback. It's a fact in the NFL. So they'll find somebody. Skylar Thompson, this is his debut, not only for the, I wouldn't say debut. He's started 8 games, but I mean, this is his audition for not only Dolphins, but for everybody else watching around the league. And, if the Dolphins if the season goes horribly wrong and they have a top 10 pick and they're in the mix,
I think you got it at that point, because you got 5 years control. And even if he comes back to there's outs after 2025, after 2026, where you can, yes, you're going to have to eat some money, obviously, but you have a comfortable enough out to where you can make that transition and pivot to the next guy in line. And I know it's always awkward having them both in the same building together, but you know what? They're each making a lot of money. Get over it and find a way to work together, because the business of football is not going to stop and feel sorry for Tua and fans and the Dolphins. It's going to move on. So it's kind of like you got to be ahead of the curve in some way.
Right. So I'll say this. I was in Green Bay covering Aaron Rodgers when the decision was made to trade up in the first round and draft Jordan Love. This is arguably a similar situation, but I mean, Rodgers was coming off MVP season, so it's a little bit different. but that ruined the relationship between Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. And it's also different because he was there for so long, and he felt like he wasn't good enough. And it gave, if you're a top pick, I mean, maybe late first round, you're expected to start. I mean, I know that Chop Robinson was taken and we're still kind of seeing him work in, but you're expected to make an impact year one. So there's so many things in play, but I hate to say this, and I kind of was thinking about this when Tua got the extension. Mike McDaniel and Tua are like this. You know, they're tied together. They're going to be tied together for the rest of their lives, whether it's in football or not. I think they have that close of a bond. And I think Mike brings the best out of Tua. And if Tua isn't the guy, I know Mike just signed an extension. You know, you've got to find what works for the quarterback, and you've got to fit that system. And I'm not saying that Mike can't do that, but there's a lot more variables in play. So,
absolutely, there's a lot of variables in play, and that's
a lot to consider. A lot.
Yeah, plus it's a veteran team, and if you go that route, it doesn't mix with what your team that you built, which is very veteran. It's the oldest team. But again, that's a question for down the road. But I do think, you know, as last Wednesday, that wasn't on the table. As we said today, that's on the table of a possibility this offseason. They're going to have to be in the quarterback market when after they gave him this contract, nobody thought they would. So I think, you know, fans sort of have to wrap their heads around this. The football is not going to stop. Everyone feels horrible for Tua, wish him the best. But there's this other reality out there that, you know, if the team wants to win and wants to move forward, I don't know if you can run an organization this way with a guy who's always, you know, everyone's one hit away, but with him, it just seems a little different at least. And you got to have a solid plan B in place, more so than maybe some other teams do, because it's a unique situation, unfortunately. Now, before we wrap up, I do want to talk about the Sunday's game at Seattle. Cross-country flight. Seattle's good. I don't know if they're great, but they're good, at least I would say. If you're Miami, we all know what's going on. Probably won't have Armstead, probably Skylar Thompson. I would think this is a game where you want to run the ball much, and, you know, you're hoping Waddle and Hill can, you know, make some more plays and help out the young quarterback. But I truly think they got to play a lot better on the other side of the ball as well. This really is going to be a total team effort here moving forward, but this first week for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, you want to find out what your team's made of. I mean, you said it. Look, Tua is the centerpiece, but you still have Tyreek Hill. You have Gold Jacket and Jaylen Ramsey. You have players on this team, and you have veteran leaders in this room, Calais Campbell being another one, you know, that you have enough talent on this team if you execute a game plan to go to Seattle and win. You're also coming off of 10 days rest. You have some hurt bodies. I know it's a long trip, but to me, you need to go to Seattle and you need to win this game. All right, they beat the Broncos. Great. You know, Bo Nix, first career game. You know, but this is a game that this team should win. Jordan Brooks is a player to watch, came over from Seattle. Essentially, he and Jerome Baker like switched positions basically. But, you know, you want to see what Skylar can do. And, you know, we'll find out if it's Skylar moving forward, maybe Huntley after that. But with Achane, Raheem Mostert potentially coming back. I know Jeff Wilson injured his oblique. Just talking to Rosenhaus, he said, you know, Wilson should be good to go. But you've got pieces. We finally saw Jonnu Smith get involved after doing nothing in the first game.
He had a hell of a game last week, yeah.
Yeah, you have pieces. It's just, can you execute? And on defense, you know, it's not Josh Allen this week. Geno Smith, he's from here. You know, it's
nice
great,
player.
but he's not Josh Allen. And I can't wait to see Jalen Ramsey go up against DK Metcalf. I would love to see them be one-on-one the entire game. I don't think it's going to happen that way, but you know, I think that you have enough to beat this team, and you should beat this team. And you know what? Go do it for Tua. You know, you want to help your quarterback. You want to go win this game. There's enough talent in the room and on this roster that you should go win this game. And then it sets you up for that Monday night game against the Titans, which I think is a very winnable game. And I hate to say it, it's a winnable game to go to the Patriots before you reevaluate and go to the bye week. And if all of a sudden you're 4-1 going into the bye week, I will take that all day.
Oh my God.
Kind of expected that to happen anyway, even with Tua. That was our prediction. So if you can get to 4-1, even 3-2, you know,
you're in it.
You're doing all right.
You're still in the fight then. Yeah. You're in the fight then. If you're there, you have a chance. But yeah, I think this week, this is where we're going to learn a lot about our head coach. I know in 2022 that was wild because he was in the lineup, out of the lineup too, and it was multiple times. This time he's been through that once, so he's got some experience at least. How to sort of, I want to see run the ball a little bit, try to get the ball in the hands of Hill and Waddle any which way you can, and let them do this is why you're paying these guys all this money. Let them do their thing, and then hope everyone else sort of lifts up their game a little. And let's try to sneak out a win here in a tough spot to win. But it's not impossible. Again, they're playing Seattle. It's not like they're going to San Francisco. It'd be a little different. This is Seattle. So we'll see. Everyone, Josh, thank you again for this week. Everyone, be sure to follow Josh on Twitter or X, whatever they're called this week at The Moz Knows. That's with a Z. MOZNKNOZ. The Moz Knows. Yep. That's at the bottom, too, if you're watching on YouTube, yes. And also see him on WSVN 7, South Florida's #1 news station. Everyone, have a great evening. If you're listening on Tuesday night or on Wednesday, we'll talk to you again after a while. And take care.